Well, it's time now to turn to our press preview, our first look at what is on tomorrow's historic front pages as they pay their tributes to Her Majesty the Queen. Well, joining us to help us through it all are the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the author and former royal photographer Ian Lloyd. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining me. Well, let's see then how some of the papers are covering this simply momentous story, and perhaps momentous doesn't even do it justice. And there we have the Mirror, quite simply says thank you. The Daily Star praises the Queen's legacy, saying, "You did your duty, ma'am." And the Metro carries this simple but simply beautiful image of Her Majesty. And the Telegraph quotes the Queen's own words, "Grief is the price we pay for love." And the Times focuses on comments by now King Charles III, who's described his mother's passing as the greatest sadness for his family. Again, a simple black and white photograph. The Guardian has chosen this elegant image of Her Majesty. And the Sun, "We loved you, ma'am," is how the Sun has thanked the Queen for those 70 years of service. And yes, even the Financial Times, of course, puts its usual coverage of economics to one side in deference to Her Majesty the Queen, a beaming Queen Elizabeth II there. Well, as I say, we're joined tonight by Jenny Kleeman and Ian Lloyd, and let's take in some of those front pages, some quite simple but wonderful images. And let's start with the Times. And Jenny, I suppose the only real difference between the papers is whether they have gone for the Queen as she was, plenty of them going for some of those coronation pictures, or as most of us, I suppose, are going to remember her now, the grandma to the nation.
Very much so. She looks very grandmotherly, doesn't she, in this picture? I mean, how do you sum up this end of an era in one front page? We know the papers plan these sorts of things in advance, but it is so difficult. She has presided over so much change. And I think there are lots of people like me who wouldn't call themselves big royalists or royal watchers, who would never buy a mug or a tea towel or Hello magazine, who are feeling really sad today. And I think these front pages really speak to that feeling. And I think, I mean, in the copy here on this front page, it talks about the Elizabethan era. And I think none of us realised that we were living in the new Elizabethan era until today. But as sometimes happens when people die and you can look back, we look back on this reign and this incredible period of history that we've all lived through. And she was one of the few British institutions that was constant, that commanded unanimous respect, that we all shared. And the thing that these front pages do very well is we're mourning two things today. We're mourning a person, a lifetime of dignified service, and we're also mourning the end of her reign, an era of Britishness, when at a time when it feels like everything is shifting so much. She being something that was constant and something that we all shared so much. And I think, these front pages, they all show how much she embodied Britishness. And there are so many different reasons that people feel patriotic. It could be the pomp and ceremony, the history, it could be the empire, or it could be decency and dignity and honour that we're meant to have as British people, have a reputation for. And she embodied all of that. So these front pages very cleverly reflect both her as a head of state and her as a remarkable person who sacrificed so much to play that role so well.
That is such a very good point. It is, of course, about Her Majesty, about the family, but it's also about us. Ian, let's take in another front page. As we said, they're all, of course, pictures of Her Majesty. Let's take in the Mirror, a different image, of course, and just tell me your thoughts. And, of course, we're looking and analysing and remembering the Queen as, I suppose, amateurs when it comes to photography. You're a professional. You've taken so many pictures like this.
Well, I'd like to have taken ones in this situation. This is by Lord Lichfield, who was a cousin of the Queen's, and that was for the Golden Jubilee of 2002. What's quite striking is just the words "thank you," because we didn't always thank the Queen, and we took her for granted. The only time we really did thank her was at the Jubilee, and marvellously she lived to be able to participate in the 70th Jubilee, the Platinum one. And that was always an occasion when you could thank her. And I do remember that people burst into the national anthem and sang it with vigour while she was on the balcony. I was there, and it was an incredibly moving moment, this tiny little figure that had made it. We didn't think she'd make it. We were told she's, in doubt, but she did make it from Windsor. And that was one of the enduring images of the reign, I think. And as I say, it was an opportunity to thank her, which we didn't always do.
That, again, is such a great point in, yes, we didn't thank her very much, but the reality is she didn't expect it. It was all about duty, it was all about service, wasn't it? Let's take in another of these front pages. We've got the Telegraph now. And, Jenny, let's just soak up that image. And this, then, what a quotation this is. Grief is the price we pay for love. I mean, how true and how simple that is.
And I think really well chosen, given how the reaction of people today. I think a lot of people are just really surprised. I've been in touch with lots of people who've said that they have cried and they didn't expect to cry today. And, she's a 96-year-old woman. It's not a total shock that this would happen. But I think we are grieving as a nation here. We're celebrating her life, but also grieving. And, we say that, we didn't get to thank her, but I am glad that she got to see the Jubilee this year, and she got to see how profoundly she was loved and remained loved right till the end. And she was, serving the country right to the end, even when she was frail. It is remarkable to think of those images that we saw 48 hours ago on Monday when she was, seeing in a new Prime Minister. She will always be remembered as somebody who was profoundly loved and who dedicated her life to service.
And did her duty right up to the very end. Yes, you're right, that a changeover of Prime Ministers, which seems such a very long time ago now. Talk about a very long time. We've been looking at images on the front of the papers of contemporary images, more or less, of Her Majesty the Queen. Let's take in another one now, because many of them have gone way, way back. They've gone back to the coronation. Let's have a look. I think we've got next the Star. And there we go. The Daily Star. And there we are in all the regalia, way back 1953, the coronation, wasn't it? Of course, 1952 when she came to the throne. And Ian, what different times they were. We hear about people, it boosted sales of black and white televisions, people huddling around the few that there were in the street. Not many people even had telephones or indeed inside toilets, etc., etc. What an era she has spanned.
Absolutely. I mean, when she came to the throne in 1952, Joseph Stalin was still leading the Soviet Union, Chiang Kai-shek in China, Harry S. Truman in America, and of course Winston Churchill was her first prime minister, who entered Parliament in the reign of Queen Victoria. So it was an amazing breadth of history that she's lived through. But one thing looking at this is, I think a younger generation, when they look at these photographs, will not have realised just how glamorous the Queen was. I mean, Prince Philip once said, the adulation, you couldn't believe it in the early days. And he said, we made a conscious decision not to appeal to the gallery, not to play the part of celebrities, but just to get on with the job, which is what she always did. But you just look at that and see what a beautiful young woman she was. 25 when she came to the throne, the same age as Queen Elizabeth I. And here she's 27 at the coronation, and a very glamorous figure.
And let's just have a last look. I think we're out of time for this hour, Jenny Kleeman and Ian Lloyd. So we just want to end this paper review. Let's just take in the Metro, because it's another of those striking images from the coronation years. And that's such a lovely point you make, Ian. Let's just have a look at it. I think it's coming up soon. The The metro, please. No, we're not going to see that because it was such a lovely image. There we are of the young Queen Elizabeth in her finery, just after she'd acceded to the throne herself on the death of her father, George VI. Such a shock to her back then, as it is a shock to us all now.